The second topic I want to invoke today, as I have also mentioned it in my short videos 2 days ago, will be related to the nuclear threat. And I want to start by speaking about an interesting article by Daniel Samler and Chris Sciobanu, Waking Up Generation Z. And this is covering basically issues that are related to the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and their impacts and legacy becoming a distant memory, losing importance, especially with the youth. For this matter, the youth is defined as Generation Z, the demographic succeeding millennials, and the preceding Generation Alpha. This is defined as people born in the mid of the late 90s until early 2010s. The Cold War, not to mention World War II, has faded further into the mist of history and have been replaced by impacts of forever wars into the mists. For this generation, the legacy and the impact of the atomic bombings were not part of their upbringing. Instead, this generation was shaped by the 9/11 attacks, 2008 financial crisis, climate change, increased terrorism around the globe, forever wars, and now a global pandemic. The absence of an emotional connection with the bombings, coupled with the fact that educational institutions largely fail to adequately teach students about the humanitarian impact and the atomic bombings, the Hibakusha message and nuclear weapons more broadly has resulted in a drastic weakening of the legacy of the atomic bombings. Youth engagements and mobilization are essential components of humanitarian disarmament, a people-centered approach to disarmament focusing on human security and the prevention and remediation of human suffering that would not be viewed as a legitimate pathway towards peace. Youth need to claim ownership of their future while looking to the past in order to understand the potential issues that are related to the consequences of sticking to the status quo. It becomes difficult, however, to mobilize youth on issues such as nuclear weapons or humanitarian disarmament when the atomic bombings do not solicit similar emotional responses as other recent social and political issues. Very important also to get back here while I'm starting to speak furthermore in detail about this topic about the issue that is related to reckless nuclear spending to increase the nuclear danger. And here I want to go back to speak about the big picture of all 9 nuclear armed states in GRIM and talk about nuclear armed states, starting with the United States, which has long served as a base stater. The United States is planning to replace and upgrade essentially its entire nuclear arsenal delivery system and warheads. The delivery system includes bombers, air-launched cruise missiles from planes, submarines that includes the Trident missiles that are being life extended, and the land-based missiles. There was a low yield warhead that has been deployed on submarine launched missiles, and submarine launched cruise missiles is in development, which would replace a capability discontinued before in the United States. And now it's very important to withdraw from the low yield warheads and end development of the submarine launched cruise missiles, but those decisions have yet to be made. Over the next 3 decades, the potential replacement program will cost on the order of $2 trillion, including maintenance of existing and replaced forces. The US currently spends more than $30 billion annually on its delivery systems and warheads, with another roughly $20 billion spent on environmental management, health costs, and military and intelligence functions related to its nuclear forces. Unfortunately, I would believe that this program is contrary to the US obligation under NPT Article 6, which requires good faith negotiations on nuclear disarmament. 2020 was the 50th anniversary of the NPT. 50 years was certainly a sufficient period for fulfillment of this obligation, if pursued in good faith. Yet the US is planning for at least several more decades of reliance on nuclear arms. Time horizons reach into the second half of this century. Moreover, Article 6 requires negotiations on cessation of the nuclear arms race on an early date. In certain respects, the United States plans definitely qualify as a nuclear arm racing, notably with respect of the planned air-launched cruise missiles. The legal obligation to disarm is not the only relevant legal element. The US is bound and recognizes it is bound by the law of armed conflict, international and humanitarian law. In short, nuclear arms cannot be used in compliance with that law or with other laws that are related to these international matters. That means that the US is relying for the indefinite future upon weapons that must not be used from a legal standpoint or any standpoint. So, another important issue when deliberating this matter will be related to how we must transform the dynamics of the world power struggle from the negative nuclear arms race, which no one can win, on a positive context to harness man's creative genius for the purpose of making peace and prosperity a reality for all the nations of the world. I would start by invoking the fact that the United States military dominates the globe through its operation of 11 unified combatant commands composed of forces from 2 or more armed services. The unified commands are headed by 4-star generals and admirals who operate under the direct authority of the Secretary of Defense of the United States, accountable by the President of the United States. 6 of the commands are responsible for designated regions of the world and 4 others for various operations. When establishment of the United States Northern Command was announced in 2002, the official press release declared for the first time commanders' areas of operations over the entire Earth. This is the new Space Command that was established in 2019. Tying all the commands together is United States Strategic Command, STRATCOM, at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. In 1992, President George Bush established STRATCOM, which for the first time brought the plan in targeting and wartime employment of nuclear forces under the control of a single commander. Previously limited to weapons, STRATCOM's role was expanded, consistent with provisions of the George W. Bush administration in 2001 Nuclear Posture Review, to encompass all aspects of assessing and responding to nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons worldwide. Nuclear weapons are not segregated either operationally or doctrinally from conventional weapons. This was not reversed in the subsequent nuclear posture reviews in 2010 and 2018. In describing this transition to a new strategic triad, the 2001 Nuclear Posture Review provides a useful tool for understanding how the United States plans to carry out its global war fighting strategy. In one corner of the new triad, new non-nuclear weapons capability have been added to the old Cold War strategic triad, consisting of submarine-based ballistic missiles, land-based intercontinental missiles, and strategic bombers, still very much there. This category was designated offensive strike systems. The other legs of this new triad are defenses and revitalized defense infrastructure that will provide new capabilities in a timely fashion to meet emerging threats. These 3 elements are bound together by an enhanced command and control and intelligence system. As military affairs analysts spoke about and warned, tearing down the firewall that has separated nuclear weapons from other weapons lowers the thresholds of the United States nuclear use. The 3 legs of the new strategic triad are designed to work together to enable the United States to project overwhelming military force. Considered in this context, it becomes easier to understand that so-called defenses are not really to defend the United States from a surprise attack. These layered systems basically include both national missile defense systems in the form of ground-based interceptors, initially in Alaska and California, and the trader missile defenses deployed at foreign bases or on ships at sea. New airborne missiles defense technologies are in development. These missiles defenses are intended to work together with the offensive weapon systems like swords and shields to protect United States troops and bases and other US strategic assets around the world. According to Stratcom's official website, the mission of US Stratcom is to deter strategic attack and employ forces as directed to guarantee the security of the United States and its allies. The command's assigned responsibilities include strategic deterrence, nuclear operations, space operations, joint electronic spectrum operations, global strike, missile defense, and analysis and targeting. US Stratcom's forces and capabilities underpin and enable all other joint forces operation. The nature of this interrelated operation brings home to the complications of what is referred as a strategic stability, the intrinsic relationship between nuclear and conventional weapons. Russia has consistently called for inclusion of strategic stability in nuclear arms control and matters in this discussion, while the United States has until now categorically refused. Mikhail Gorbachev warned about the pursuit of the military superiority that will be an insurmountable obstacle to riding the world of nuclear weapons unless we discuss demilitarization of international politics, the reduction of military budget, preventing militarization of our space. Talking about a nuclear free world will just be rhetorical in this context.